Afternoon, everyone. This July 20th, 2021 meeting of the Lake Oswego City Council is now called to order. Ms. Linder, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Buck?
Here.
Councillor Mboop?
Yes.
Councillor Mant? Here. Councillor Wynn?
Here.
Councillor Wendland?
Here.
Councillor Burdick? Here. And Rob?
Here. And just a reminder that Councillor Mboop is joining us remotely for this meeting via Zoom. Everyone, will you please stand and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on our agenda this afternoon is public comment. And first for public comment is Ms. Megan Busby, and she is joining us for comment via Zoom. Hi, Ms. Busby.
Hello, good afternoon, Mayor Buck and City Councillors. My name is Megan Busby, resident of Lake Oswego, mother of 2 young daughters, an Australian, and the local group lead for Mums Demand Action for Gun Sense America. Today, as you raise awareness and sign the Gun Violence Reduction Proclamation, I want to personally express my appreciation. Thank you, Mayor Buck, for reading my correspondence and consciously choosing to take action. This reflects your high ethical and moral standards and conveys that, as both a mayor and fellow human, you value every life equally. Gun violence prevention is now more important than ever as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to exacerbate the problem. After more than a year of increased gun sales, increased calls to suicide and domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in city gun violence, we are battling 2 public health crises at the same time. This proclamation is not only words on a piece of paper, it is an extraordinary step in communicating and establishing a commitment and vision that this city will be free from gun violence, raising awareness and ultimately saving a community from decades of trauma and unnecessary death. I look forward to working with you and community partners, taking the next steps to make this vision a reality. This includes rolling out multiple gun violence awareness campaigns that are targeted at addressing specific risk factors and protecting specific members of our community. For example, suicide prevention. In Oregon, 81% of all gun deaths are gun suicides. Suicides of middle school-aged children have increased over the past decade in Oregon by 216%. Suicide is the leading cause of death among Oregonians aged a tender age of 10 to 24. Oregon's youth suicide rate has been nearly twice the national rate. Over 80% of child gun suicides involves a gun belonging to a parent or relative. Safe storage of firearms and ammunition can prevent these tragedies. We must communicate the importance of safe storage and normalize a gun safety conversation for parents when sending their child to a home of a friend or relative. Extreme risk protection orders allow Oregonians to keep guns out of the hands of individuals who may harm themselves or others. It's an extremely effective tool when used, but most citizens know little about red flag laws, ERPO, or how to seek the protection of this legislation. At the local level, we can change this through awareness campaigns. I have many other examples of gun violence and domestic violence, gun violence, equity, gun violence, and police violence, but I'd be out of time. But for today is a day that makes me feel very proud to be a resident of Lake Oswego and proud to share the news to friends and family in fellow allied nations who worry tremendously. This proclamation is a profound start to establishing a prosperous community, and I look forward to working with you further on this matter. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate having you here. Okay, and next for a comment is Ms. Stephanie Wagner. Ms. Wagner, please come forward. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Wagner, and I've lived in at 14494 Uplands Drive in Lake Oswego for 40 years this year. And thank you for an opportunity for me to be able to address you. I'm here to encourage the council to put forth an amendment to the city charter to support protection of natural spaces in our city. I've served on both the Parks and Recreation and Natural Resource Advisory Boards, and am presently the chair of the Oswego Lake Watershed Council, which actively works to enhance privately owned natural areas within our city. It was right after Christmas of 2019 when I was asked to join a group concerned about a petition being circulated by a group called Love LO Parks. Our group included leaders of friends groups that steward our city's natural parks and the Oswego Lake Watershed Council. These leaders have cumulatively spent decades stewarding our city's natural areas. The Love LO Parks petition was to amend Chapter 10 of the Lake Oswego City Charter and put forth by a group that was informed to stop construction of a cell tower on Cook's Butte. Our leaders group agreed with the sentiment of preserving natural areas, but were worried about some of the aspects of the petition that could make caring for these areas more difficult in the future. Individuals in our leaders group had already talked with the petitioners and voiced their concerns, but it seemed the initiative language was set. Our group approached the city manager and director of parks and suggested the city draft an alternate amendment to Chapter 10 that would address some of the problems with the Love LO Parks initiative. Those suggestions have been included in the referendum Council will be considering next week. Chapter 10 was put forward in 1978 by a group of citizens led by Ruth Pennington to protect Springbrook Park and keep it a natural area. Ruth was a dear friend of mine. We worked together at Tryon Creek State Park, where I served as the executive director. One project I worked on at Tryon with Ruth was the development of the paved All Abilities Trillium Trail. Access to nature for everyone was very important to Ruth. The trail was paved to allow for an edge that allowed someone who was blind to navigate the trail with a cane. This was a very definite design part of the trail and why a hard surface was important. I know Ruth would be pleased to see Springbrook Park protections expanded to natural areas throughout the city. I also know she would want to be sure there are no barriers to access. I feel our city has a robust process to include citizen voices in making decisions and encourage council to refer Chapter 10 referendum to our community for a vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wagner. Next for public comment is Nancy Gronowski. Ms. Gronowski, please come forward. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. I'm Nancy Gronowski. I live at 2160 Crest Drive in the Uplands neighborhood. Springbrook Park is just down the street from my house. I've been a resident of Lake Oswego since 1987. I'm a retired landscape architect with 40 years of experience working for various park systems, including Oregon State Parks and Portland Parks and Recreation. I served 2 terms each on the Natural Resources Advisory Board and the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and I was on the board for the Friends of the Springbrook Park and helped write its management plan, and currently on the advisory board for the Friends of Lusher Farm. I'm here today to follow up from what Stephanie said and ask City Council to consider the following as they draft the city referendum to protect and preserve our natural areas. First is to increase the number of natural areas being protected by adding Free Ponds Natural Area, Tryon Cove, Sunny Slope, South Wind 1 and 2, and Kelly Creek, and some other specific recommendations. The initiative petition bans parking in natural areas. Many of us disagree with that. It is important to provide parking where it's needed in the larger citywide natural areas. Parking already exists in some natural areas, and parking would only be added where necessary and when a master plan for that particular area had been completed and approved. The initiative petition bans vehicular access, and we very much disagree with this. Park crews need vehicle access to maintain the natural areas, to bring in materials like wood chips and bark and gravel and grading, and to clear areas to create fire breaks that are needed to control wildfires, a clear and growing danger. These are not paved roads, but are built to handle vehicles. Springbrook Park already provides such access. The initiative petition actively discourages pavement of any kind. Again, we disagree. There are places where pavement is very desirable and needed to provide ADA access for parents with strollers and kids and people with mobility issues. Access for all is important. The initiative petition also only allows master plans that already exist to be implemented. Some of these are very outdated or non-existent. The petition makes no provision for the citizens to have input into what goes on in their natural areas in the future. And it would require a charter amendment for specific changes not specifically approved in their measure, so that you had It would have to go to the vote of the people to add a parking lot or an access road. With these common sense recommendations, the city's referendum will be comprehensive and inclusive. It will promote collaboration, cooperation, and community involvement, and will ensure the preservation and enhancement of our natural areas, and Springbrook Park will not lose its current protections. Lake Oswegans love their parks and natural areas. We pass bonds to buy land. We spend hours developing Parks Plan 2025 and the Lusher Area Master Plan, and we invest hundreds of hours annually in on-the-ground stewardship to care for, improve, maintain, protect, and preserve our natural areas. Finally, it is expensive and time-consuming to change the city charter, our constitution. It is important that we do it as infrequently as possible and get it right when we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gronowski. Well, that's everyone we had signed up for public comment. Is there anyone else that would like to provide any public comment? Okay. And moving on, we have a few presentations today, and we're going to start with a presentation from Alex Mim from Clackamas County, presenting the city with its Leaders in Sustainability Award for our new City Hall building. Mr. Mim, good to have you here.
Thank you. Again, my name is Alex Mim. I'm a sustainability advisor with Clackamas County, and for the past 5 years, I've been serving workplaces in the city of Lake Oswego to help them adopt a wide range of sustainability practices. Kind of our program's bread and butter, realistically, is in garbage. So recycling, waste reduction, composting, and things like that. But the program that we're excited about the most, or at least the one that I'm most excited about, is our program called Leaders in Sustainability. And I am here because your new lovely City Hall and the people within it have been certified as leaders in sustainability at the highest level, gold. For those of you who are not familiar with Leaders in Sustainability, it's essentially a big old laundry list of sustainability best practices covering topics like employee trainings and broader policies, energy conservation, water conservation, stormwater quality, hazardous materials management. There's more. Transportation, community give back, and equity and inclusion. There's 88 practices on the application, and to reach any level of certification is not easy at all. Well, we call it Leaders in Sustainability for a reason. There's currently fewer than 50 certified organizations throughout Clackamas County, and to reach gold requires doing at least 55 distinct sustainability practices, which is really difficult to do. It's, you know, the building itself realistically did earn some points, but if you look at the vast majority, it's not the stuff around the building, it's the people within it and how they do their job. So it's leadership and direction from council and the city manager, it's buy-in and direction at the department level, but really most of all, it's the employees who make this stuff a part of their work day in and day out. It's kind of cheesy to say, but everybody really is a leader in sustainability when you do this. If you look at the impact and what people are doing, really everyone is helping to carry the ball forward. Some of the features here, obviously you have a solar array on the roof, you have nice low flow fixtures. There's been a lot of considerations into making this building as green as possible, but again, most of the points that earn certification are actions, not stuff. Of course, the county and the city have a long-standing working relationship. Our team helps residents, schools, and businesses throughout the county, including in Lake Oswego, to again reduce waste and recycle right. But Lake Oswego, as you know, is a pretty special place, and when it comes to sustainability, there's no other place like it in Clackamas County. So for some examples, within Leaders in Sustainability, there's no city with a higher number of certified businesses. The city has the most certified Oregon green schools. There's, of course, the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network that I'm sure you hear from every great now and again. There's an interfaith action group within LOSN, which is a group of interfaith organizations and houses of worship who are sharing sustainability education and resources, which is one of a kind. And then, of course, there's the new and upcoming Eco Home LO, which is the first of its kind in the region, and I'm sure you're going to see a lot of local governments basically rip it off for the better, but realistically, they're going to copy it. So it's very fitting that City Hall gets certified in this. I think it's been a long time coming. We've had a great working relationship, and our team at Clackamas County is very, very excited to say, Congratulations to City Hall for being certified as leader in sustainability at the gold level.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Mr. Mim downplays his role in the creation of Leaders in Sustainability. He's played a big part in the building of this program, which has been very popular in LO, and partly what we based the residential certification program that he mentioned, Eco Home LO, on was the Leaders in Sustainability program. So thank you very much for all you do to serve the county, for the county, Alex.
Very well. Yeah, it's that program I think is really exciting. The students did a fantastic job. Our team back at Clackamas County has talked about it, and realistically, you know, any sort of input that we provided, our team on the business outreach team I'm a part of, we're actually looking at it because we haven't been engaging with home-based businesses as much as we probably could, and there's a lot of practices on that we're going to learn from as well. So
That's great. That's great.
we're all learning from one another.
Thank you for all your help. We appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Okay. Our next presentation is from our friends at Republic Services, and they are here with an annual report. Welcome.
Sure.
Does it just show up?
Can everybody see it? Oh, okay. Sorry, my first time out of the gate after the pandemic. Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's really nice to be here today and to see you all in person. I'm KJ Lewis. I'm the Municipal Relationship Manager for Republic Services for the metro area, including Lake Oswego. With me today is Zias, the Finance Manager for our business unit. And, okay, thank you so much. Perfect. And Jason Jordan could not join us today because he was called to help a business unit in Colorado, but he sends his regards. Today we're going to talk about garbage and recycling. I have extra copies of the annual report if you would like a paper copy, but you can go to the next slide, Will. Okay, this is a pretty broad overview of what's going on in the world of solid waste and recycling. First of all, legislative update. The big news from Salem in my world was that Senate Bill 582 passed, and Senate Bill 582 is the result of over 2 years of a lot of work by DEQ, local governments, industry, haulers, plastics producers, and it was a long process and was a fairly contentious bill, but it did pass. And what it will do is overhaul the recycling system in Oregon in a good way. It will put more responsibility on the plastics producers to ensure that what they are producing is recyclable. In the state of Oregon, it'll create a comprehensive list so it's less confusing for the consumer. There was a sister bill that did not pass called a Truth in Labeling Bill, because unfortunately the chasing arrows symbol doesn't always mean that that item is recyclable in Oregon or has an end market. So that bill has been referred to a task force. A task force will be created. So there'll be a lot more to learn as Senate Bill 582 goes into rulemaking, but it was very exciting that it passed. Whoops. Whoop. Did you skip one?
A little sensitive there. There we
I
go.
think you need to go back.
That's 582.
Okay, Committed to Serve. Okay. So Committed to Serve is a program that we started, an internal program that started right when the pandemic hit. And here's several things that we did. We have like a national foundation that works with organizations like Habitat for Humanity, NeighborWorks, and Rebuilding Together on livability and neighborhood revitalization projects. So those nonprofits or even local nonprofits can apply for funding. We dedicated an additional $3 million to that grant program as soon as COVID started. We gave all of our employees an additional 10 days of PTO for any employee who was diagnosed or had to care for a family member who was diagnosed with COVID-19. Another thing we did that was unique, really unique in the industry, is we, for our frontline essential workers, we gave them meals twice a week, one either a breakfast or lunch, and then one a take-home dinner for their family. And we got those meals from local restaurants too, because we were so frightened, I'm sure the mayor can relate, right at the beginning about how they were gonna make it through the lockdown. And you can imagine that some of those family meals, those were pretty big orders, and it was great for our employees and they loved it. We also gave them every other week $100 gifts, like a gift card to spend at local businesses, and we made it like a contest, you know, where they had to send us a selfie where the business they were supporting, and then we displayed all of those pictures. Here's just some pictures from us picking up food and shopping for our frontline employees. It was an eventful year. After the pandemic, or during the pandemic when the wildfires came, again, we gave gift cards to our frontline workers. And as you know, many of our employees live in Marion County and were evacuated in Clackamas County. We spent money, you know, we put them up in hotels. Anybody who needed a place to stay, we made sure that they had a place to stay. And we also kept picking up the solid waste and recycling, and so we provided additional PPE for the crews that were working through the situation. And then came the ice storm. So we had many coworkers without power, so we, as needed, you know, provided lodging for those employees. We provided meal assistance again. We procured generators for some when that was that strange time when some people had power and other power had not returned. And we hauled a whole bunch of storm debris. And I'm telling you these stories because I would just very proud to work for Republic Services, because we like to take care of our employees so that they can take care of you and your community and your constituents. On the customer service front, this is Lake Oswego specific of any customer complaints from 2020. We have 2 call centers in Oregon, one in Woodburn, one in Corvallis. They have been staffed up and we have really short wait times, only 12 seconds. So you can see in Lake Oswego, we didn't have too many complaints per, you know, compared to how many residents you have and how many chances we have serving your city to make a mistake, I guess you could say, or earn a complaint. So we did. Hopefully we served your community well during 2020. Here's some quotes that we had from customers who called in with compliments. Here's just fun facts about your city and our service here. We have 21 drivers that serve your city. You can see we pick up almost 2 million containers last year. Our trucks are all CNG. They're housed in Wilsonville. And we collected, you know, almost 34,000 tons of material from Lake Oswego last year. I am going to turn it over to Will. Oh, should I talk a little bit about what tonnage?
Yes.
Okay, so you may or may not know that there are transfer stations in the metro area where all of the garbage and yard debris comes, and we have one in Wilsonville, and I would love to give you a tour if you are interested in taking a tour. But Metro owns 2 of those. There's 2 public stations, and then the rest are privately owned, including ours in Wilsonville. Metro this year, well, previously they had allocated wet waste, so food scraps and yard debris, proportionally amongst the private stations, and this year they changed their allocation method to what they're calling a goals-based allocation method, and they're using you know, goals such as living wages, workforce diversity, environmental impacts, like does our facility use low emissions fuel? Are we investing in the community where our transfer station is hosted, and, you know, making sure that rates are stable system-wide? which are all really noble goals, and we have submitted our data and expect that we measure up to Metro's standard. Go ahead.
And then in addition to that, Metro this year, effective July 1st, put into effect a rate adjustment on their tip fee at the Metro transfer stations of 17%, which is a fairly significant impact. And you'll see it as we look at the P&L. It'll kind of explain some things because we were here last year and we received a rate adjustment, which thank you for that. It certainly helped. The Metro tip fee was not known at that time, and it certainly impacted our P&L. So I will flip over to our income statement. Last year, our P&L performed at a 6.7% op income return, which is the line we look at. And then this year, based on our forecasted increases in expenses and the increase in revenues that we received from the rate adjustment that went into effect January 1st, we expect to really kind of maintain at 6.6%. The biggest impact of that, because absent the Metro tip fee increase, we would have anticipated to finish around 9% this year. But that tip fee increase did have a significant impact on our P&L this year.
Do you want to talk about the target?
Yes.
We have some new council members.
So I'll use this slide just to kind of talk about the target. In Oregon, it's fairly common that cities and jurisdictions will look at an 8 to 12% return for our industry with a target of 10%. You may ask why 10%, and that's simply because 10% is not really what goes to the shareholders from the 10%. There's still taxes to be paid from that. Cost of capital, our equipment is very expensive. A truck costs $350,000 or more. And then we have to maintain cash reserves for day-to-day operating activities. So by the time you factor all of those things into the equation, really the return on 10% is closer to 4% that goes to the shareholders. So as you can imagine, on a return of 6% and change, really we're not returning much, if anything, to the shareholders on that as a result of those other factors in the equation. What this slide represents is the upper bound and lower bound in the dotted red lines of that 8 to 12% range. And then the dark blue line is the 10% target, if you will. And then the light blue line is where our profitability was at in 2019 and 2020 and where we see that going in 2021 and 2022. Again, largely impacted by that Metro tip fee increase. Were it not for that, in 2021, you would see the light blue line within the upper and lower bound at 9%. This slide just shows the schedule of expenses and really kind of points to, you can see forecast assumptions that we've made. So on the disposal and recycling line, you don't see 17% there, you see 12.7. The reason you don't see a full 17% is that the recycling is in here as well, and that's not increasing. In fact, we've seen a little positive movement there. So in terms of forecast assumptions, we have left that sort of stable, but we do have the disposal tip fee increase in here. Labor, we're a union shop, and so it's a known labor increase. But we don't make a lot of big assumptions otherwise in terms of inflationary costs and things like that. So we really leave in just the known and measurable items for our expense assumptions. When we talk about how a customer payment breaks down, most of your ratepayers are in a 35-gallon container, and this is how their payment breaks down. But you can see the largest piece of that pie is disposal and recycling. And being within this metro area, that's a cost we really don't have a lot of control over. So when there's a 17% increase, we definitely feel the impact of that. And so, here it's nearly 40%, and that pie will grow with that increase as well. Outside of that, labor is our second largest expense item, and followed by equipment expense. So with that, before I hand it back over to KJ, just want to say that for us, we would ask that the council today direct staff to work with us on a rate adjustment to come back later in the fall and present that just in light of the tip fee increase.
And this is nearing the end of our presentation. I just wanted to point out some of the awards that our company has been given, including Best Employers for Women, 100 Best Corporate Citizens, and World's Most Ethical Companies, which we've won 4 times in a row. Thank you for letting us present, and we're open for questions.
Thank you.
I'm happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any information on how our organics collection has tracked over the past several years since we started collecting food scraps in the yard debris bin?
Weight-wise?
Weight-wise.
Can we pull that up?
We can get back to
We can
it,
look into that,
information.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was my question. Does anyone else have any questions? Councilor Wendell.
Do you see the recycling, like paper prices going up, or do you think, you were almost having to pay to get rid of recycling, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a worthwhile discussion for you to have in the marketplace, to share with the council, because I think that's important. We used to recycle and get a lot of money for recycling, and now we don't, for the most part, right? Has that recovered at all?
We haven't seen any sustained recovery. Commingled prices very recently, just within the last month or so, have had some positive movement, and so we're looking at that. We hope that we do see some sustained recovery there. But for a long time, we've really we have been paying to get rid of recycling, and it's probably been that way for a couple of years now.
Since the crash of the market. It'll be interesting to see what Senate Bill 582 does to that also as it's implemented after the rulemaking process. So we'll be tracking that and happy to report out on that.
So you think that'll have a positive impact on your recycling prices, or do you think it's gonna cost you more to get rid of things?
Well, I think part of the intent is to make sure that there's a market for those particular products that will be on a statewide list. So my intuition is that, and my hope is that it will have a positive impact for our processors.
Councilor Mans.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the presentation. We always appreciate you coming in. My question revolves around compliance and folks throwing the right things into the recycle bin. I know at the beginning of the program many years ago, there was a problem around that. Have you seen an increase in compliance?
Like a reduction in contamination?
Yes, thank you, a reduction in contamination.
Mm-hmm. Well, the best person to answer would be our drivers, I'm sure. But I think that Lake Oswego has done a great job, as Alex spoke about earlier, and partners really well with the education team as part of his team. I would say that Lake Oswego residents have a high awareness of what is recyclable and where it belongs.
Great, that's heartening. Thank you.
Councilor Nguyen.
Well, thank you. I guess related to Councilor Mans's question. So I remember way back when recycling was separated. I think we always had a separate bin for newspaper and glass and metal. I was just curious, was that? It almost seems like from a business person standpoint, if we can pre-sort and even when we sort laundry, if you can separate your whites from your blacks, and your colors, right? It seems like it could save labor on the short end. But I was just curious to know, what's the reason behind going commingle versus having the residents separate newspaper from cardboard, from metal and glass?
Yeah, that's a good question.
If you've seen these days, the recycle facilities, they're pretty amazing works of engineering, and they can really do that process so much more efficiently than, even though you have, as you suggested, a homeowner separating at the curb, still just the added time to keep that separated at the truck. And I do recall, back in those days, we had these trucks with troughs on the side that you dump different recyclables into to keep them separate there. It's so much more efficient just to have it dumped as commingle into the truck and take it to the recycler. They can handle that so much better in terms of efficiencies. And we do see the efficiencies in what they charge us. They've really switched more to a model now that recycling isn't a big, we don't make money on it, but they offset the costs we incur through the efficiencies that they have at these facilities. So
yeah, I've heard a lot about that efficiency with AI and be able to machine sort, but it just seems like, again, again, I'm not to get in the weeds, but it seems like sometimes a whole load of stuff gets contaminated with, cardboard gets dirty because of some liquid, but, I just thought it seems interesting that if you put it all in one container, it will eventually get contaminated by the residue from other products, but you're the experts on this, so
Sure.
we'll defer to you.
Great.
Councilor Rapp.
Firstly, Councilor Mans, I do have to commend KJ and her staff on their drivers specifically, because I believe I am the one Lake Oswego resident who is always trying to slip stuff through, and they're always constantly coaching me on what can go in the bin, what doesn't. So, so no, Councilor Wynn, it doesn't separate them by the owner does not work.
Your honesty.
It's honesty first. This is a question for Megan. I can't remember, recently we did just approve a rate or fee increase to Republic Services? Is that true?
it went into effect January 1st.
Okay, and you guys are asking for another increase?
We would,
Is that what you said?
we would, yes,
Okay.
in a sense, we would like to work on staff with that. Lake Oswego used, I believe, Bell and Associates last year. We've worked with them before too, and we'd like to look at it because the tip fee increase does sort of offset the increase that we received in the revenues.
And was
Metro
our-
increase was a bit of a surprise.
And so, thank you, was our increase authorization, did we know about their tip fee increase when we authorized the payment or the increase, or is this kind of new news?
Councilor, I'll have to look into that, the
Okay.
exact timing of that. I'm not sure at this
Okay.
time, unless Ms. Lewis knows.
Metro announced their tip fee increase in the spring this year.
Yeah.
And it went into effect on July 1st.
And it wasn't, and it was not included in the assumptions made in the forecast by the consultant.
Okay. I think, as a council, I think we should look and see what information we had prior to that fee increase, and if we knew about it before, I think that'd be good information to have, so. That's not for you guys to do, more work for us, so, thank you.
Yeah, and that's, I'm sorry, that was because it was an unknown at the time to the consultant and us, what that would be, so.
Councilor Mbu. Can you
hear me?
There we go. Yes, we hear you.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm saying thank you very much. It's almost 1 o'clock here. I'm, trying to hold on. But yeah, I just, for always Republic Services, you folks are doing a wonderful work, I think. And I am one that pays at home and at my business, and I think what we are paying is not cheap, honestly. I mean, and when you see also your profit, $751,000 is a profit in a business. 2.1%. I really don't have your book to see all the things, but as a citizen first who will be impacted by a raise, but also as a citizen that represent as a citizens, I will feel very uncomfortable going for any increase of the payment of the people in Lake Oswego for the garbage we are picking up. If you were in the red, we could, discuss that. But, I think what we're paying already is expensive. But, thank you for your work. I just wanted to mention that.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Boob. Okay. Councilor Willis?
So I guess when you're subjected to a tax that we didn't know about, can we tax Metro for something to get a rebate? In all honesty, I mean, I totally understand what the Senate's talking about. It's unsurprised, and no one likes utility bills or disposable bills to go up. On the other hand, we operate under an operating sort of assumption that band of profit between, 6 and 12%?
8 and 12.
8 and 12 is the standard industry that we go by so we can regulate rates. Is that historically what we do? So,
Yeah.
So it becomes part of our job to make sure that we stay within that band so that we can continue to regulate pricing. So, I mean, it's just you have to know the whole assumptions and all the criteria that are based on rates. And so, again, it's one of those things when other municipalities or other entities continue to tax us more, we just get to pay. So we need to either help Metro figure out how to not charge us 17%, or we allow them to increase their taxes to us, so we had to pass it on to our citizens, and that's the unfortunate part. But maybe that 17% is paying for something that everybody wants, so it's all golden. So anyway, but it's a more complex issue than just, you guys aren't, well, I'm sure you'd love to have 25 or 30% margins, but in your business, you're looking at that band, and that's fairly predictable and fairly regulated in your industry. Is that correct?
That is correct. And again, that band is on op-inc. So there are expenses that occur after that level. So the 751 is what we use, what the industry and the jurisdictions kind of agree to use as the measure by which profit and target is set. But we still, 751,000, 2 trucks, and that's gone.
Right. It's all percentages. It's not a number. And you have shareholders to report to, so we want you in business so that we can have a competitive environment. It's also part of it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. I don't want your request to fall flat. I'll be honest, I was expecting the update, but not any kind of request. So if you'd kind of go through the regular channels, send us something in writing, that would be great.
Sounds great.
Of course.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
Really
thank you.
appreciate it.
Great information. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is a public hearing on Resolution 21-20, which is a special procurement contract with Carollo Engineers. Attorney Luce, will you please read the hearing procedures for us? What's that? Oh, excuse me, my proclamation. Forgot my proclamation. Sit down. No, sit down. You're fine.
Okay.
Don't leave. Thank you. I'm getting cross off happy here. Okay. On the agenda. As part of our ongoing effort to raise awareness to issues impacting all of us, we have a proclamation today on gun violence reduction awareness. So 2021 is on track to be the most tragic year on record for deaths related to gun violence. Over the 4th of July weekend alone, there were more than 400 shootings and 150 deaths. So while we celebrated our independence, we were simultaneously charged to take stock of our collective responsibility to advocate for the host of policy changes needed to prevent these horrific deaths from continuing at record numbers year after year. So far in 2021, there have been well over 10,000 deaths nationwide attributed to gun violence and an additional 12,000 deaths related to gun suicide. Every week, 11 Oregonians are brutally and unnecessarily killed by gun violence, amounting to over 565 deaths per year. These figures reflect a dire need to not only address the flow of guns used to commit violent crimes, but also to address the core issues at the heart of the statistics: income inequality, fractured relationships between police and community, and outlandish rates of gun ownership. As a city council, we're actively building trust with the community and between our public safety officials and neighbors. We continue enhancing the ways we fill the gaps for the least fortunate among us to ensure our city is open to people of all backgrounds and income levels, and that opportunities for success exist, especially for those traditionally marginalized in our society. As neighbors, we know those who live around us, look out for one another, model the behavior we hope to see in all, and take an active role in the lives of the youth in our community. We recognize the importance of raising awareness to the issue of gun violence, especially as it continues to grow at an alarming rate. We thank local advocacy groups and individuals within Lake Oswego continually fighting for policies to protect children and other community members from gun violence. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Lake Oswego City Council, proclaim gun violence reduction awareness and call upon the people of the city of Lake Oswego to join us in advocating for the many common sense regulations at the state and federal level that could save countless lives. And furthermore, we call on our fellow community members to strengthen relationships with neighbors, with youth, family, and coworkers, which foster compassion and support and channel conflicts to peaceful resolutions, demonstrating the power of understanding, holding the value of all human life in the highest regard. Thank you, and I thank the community members who continue to raise these issues and bring them forward to us. Hello. Gentlemen, welcome. Okay, thank you, everyone. Yes, okay. Thank you, Ms. Linder, keeping me on track. Okay, so to our public hearing, Resolution 21-20, Mr. Luce, please.
Thank you,
review the
Mayor and
hearing
Council.
procedures.
This is a public hearing for Resolution 2120, resolution by the Lake Oswego City Council acting as the Lake Oswego Public Contracting Review Board pursuant to ORS 279A.060, making certain findings and approving a special procurement for Carollo Engineers, Inc. for technical advisory services, outreach, and oversight of the preliminary services provided by the project company for the wastewater treatment plant project, and authorizing the city manager to execute the contract. The public hearing process will begin with a city staff report, followed by testimony. Time limits for the testimony will be 10 minutes for representatives of recognized neighborhood associations, homeowners associations, government agencies, and other incorporated public interest organizations. 5 minutes for all other individuals. And after the public hearing, questions of staff and deliberations and a decision by council.
Okay. Well, with that, we are ready for the staff report. Mr. Hooper, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Buck and Council. First, I'd like to start by introducing Dan Lafitte of Carollo Engineers. And today we're here to ask for a special procurement with Carollo in order for them to provide oversight of the deliverables from EPCOR. As you recall, last May, 2.5 months ago, you approved a contract for us to do preliminary services with EPCOR, about 14 months worth of work. And during that period, they're going to be doing a whole number of things for us, including designing up to 60%, submitting permitting into DEQ, and coming up with a definitive pricing for the plants. And so during that period of time, we need somebody to help the city and be an extension of the city. And we're hoping Carollo could do that. So if I could, I'd just turn it over to Dan to kind of talk about what his role is on the project.
Sure. My name is Dan Lafitte. I'm the project manager with Carollo, and really there are two concepts that I'd want to share. The first is that the services that we've proposed essentially mirror those that are being provided by the EPCOR team through the various phases of design. And the second concept is that our hope is to work with Anthony and Erica to essentially serve as an extension of your staff, bringing expertise in wastewater process design, operations, EI&C design for controls of a wastewater treatment plant to the design process to make sure that concepts and approaches that are presented by the EPCOR team are things that the city should be comfortable with.
Thank you, Dan. So we've had Carollo on our team since 2019, and during that time, they've developed a lot of technical specifications for us that we've used in all of our procurement documents, and they've developed a lot of knowledge on this project that would be hard to replace, and it would cost time and money in order to do that. And we believe that because of the expertise and the time that they've devoted to this project already, that it deserves a special procurement for us to direct point. And in addition, the reason that we went with Carollo in the beginning was that they designed our wastewater master plan in 2013. They also were developing, working with Tryon Creek on the upgrades as well. So they had a lot of knowledge on that. They also did our flow modeling for the city as well on our wastewater. So they had a lot of expertise that they brought to the table initially, and it's just grown over the last 2.5 years. So we will be happy after the public hearing to answer a lot of questions, but I thought it would be very helpful also just to give a quick update on the project as well. And since it is tangential to this, but I think it's important for you to know kind of where we've been in the last 2.5 months. So I kind of want to start by saying that I think it's becoming very clear to me in the time that we're working with EPCOR that we picked a fantastic partner that works really well with us, and that there's really 4 innovative aspects of this project that are becoming crystallized to me. The first one is that we just recently selected Aqua Nareda as our technology, and Aqua Nareda is classified as a aerobic granular sludge technology. And there are about 80 of those plants in existence in the world over the last, it kind of came into existence about 15 years ago, so it's fairly new. There are there's a handful in the U.S. It's just starting now to get. There's a bunch actually in development right now, but for the plant that we're going to, the size of the plant that we're designing and looking to build, it will be the largest of its size by quite a margin in the U.S. And I think it will be a project in a wastewater treatment plant that I think is going to be looked upon by the industry and by other cities in the future. And I think we're going to get a lot of people visiting to look at the technology itself. EPCOR believes that's the technology of the future. I think we do too. And we're really excited about that technology. We've had several meetings with DEQ, and they've been very, very receptive. They've actually been aware of the technology and done some research on it. And frankly, the meetings have gone very, very well. Second thing I want to mention is that we are about to submit this week for a WIFIA loan, which stands for a Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. So essentially what that would do is that if we get that loan, it equates to about $30 million for this project, about $20 million for us and $10 million for City of Portland, for our ratepayers, as far as money that we would save from having to pay on interest over the lifetime of this project versus the traditional way that we would go with private financing. So we're looking to get about 48% of our project funded through that. One thing that is, once again, very innovative about what we're about to do here is that EPCOR is going to be the first private company to submit on behalf of a city ever in the history of this program. So if it does get accepted, then, which we're actually feeling pretty confident at this point that we've put together a really compelling application, then it will set a precedent. And one that WIFIA is set up to do, there just has not been a project that's been aligned enough in order to do that. One real advantage of that for cities, and why this is kind of a thing that can be really good for cities across the U.S., is that it takes away some of the negatives of the program. One of the negative is that traditionally, the city would apply for it and it would fall in our books. It would count against our capacities. It would also count against us for future federal funding. And then administratively, it would have to be carried through the city as well. Whereas all of that will be carried through EPCOR. And they've been very thoughtful, in my opinion, and frankly willing to do it. I think kind of shows the kind of company that they are. Because once again, I think it's a really good thing for us as a city. And once again, it would be the first time ever. Third thing I want to mention, as far as that's unique, is the way that we're looking to design this. I showed early schematics back in May. Those are just early drawings, but the concept is that they're going to be fully enclosed buildings. So aesthetically, when you walk by this wastewater treatment plant, you won't be able to tell that it's one. It'll look like commercial buildings, and it won't smell like one either. And so I think that's a concept that I think is going to be replicated around the U.S. That there's a few examples, but there's not a lot around that have done that. And I think in the way that we're intending to do it, I think it's going to be really interesting and compelling. And then fourth, the process that we're using. So this will be the second public-private partnership in Oregon's history, other than so Wilsonville did one successfully, which created a kind of a blueprint for us. And it was very helpful. Frankly, we hired the same attorneys that they used on their project, and they've been really great for us. And it is actually the very first, though, that has the full design, build, finance, operate, maintain in Oregon's history. And so that's innovative in itself. But what's even more innovative is that throughout the U.S., we're using this thing called a progressive design build process. And I know that, Council, that you're all familiar with CMGC. We did it on the City Hall building. We did it on the Maintenance Center building. So essentially what the progressive design build is, it takes the CMGC process and puts it in the P3 world. And that wasn't really done very often. So there's been some projects that have done it, so it's not the very first, but there isn't a ton, and it's fairly new for the industry. So having another project that is successful will help that. And I think I really do believe in it, because what it means is that you hire the company that designs, builds, operates, and maintains it all at the very beginning. So we have discussions with them and with our consultants at the very beginning of design. And we're also able to get input from the public earlier as well that helps drive decisions that we make. So usually you hire them at the very end when you've already had your design done or very close to being done, and then you bring a partner in later on. So anyways, for those were four things that I think are very innovative and that we've been working on since I last talked to you. Another thing that I want to mention is that we're also working on doing a robust outreach. And so actually, as part of the Carollo's, we actually are hiring Barney and Worth to help supplement our outreach efforts. And we plan on doing a sustainability workshop in late September, early October. We also plan to do a survey afterwards, and a virtual workshop after that as well. And they also plan on doing public outreach at every point of our design. So when we get 30% design, we plan on doing some outreach. When we get 60% design, we plan on doing outreach. So once again, I'm going to come to you in October for a study session. And at that point, we will have, we're anticipating having 50% design plans. And our base designer is basically what it's called. And we can talk about, I can show you what we've found through that. And so anyways, I just thought, without taking any more time, that I would just give you a just quick overview of where we are. And I feel very encouraged, and I feel the project is actually going really well. And I'm trying my best not to have rose-colored glasses as I'm doing this, but it is going very, very well. So
wonderful. Ed, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Hooper, Mr. Feet? Okay, Councilor Mans?
Rather than a question, a comment, thank you so much for all of the work that you put into educating us. It has made all the difference in the world on such a complex project. Also, as one who's always been interested in our transient lodging tax coffers, having visitors come to town to see this magnificent plant will be a lovely thing. So thank you again, Anthony, and thank you to Carollo for helping to make this happen.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nguyen?
Well, thank you again for your very thorough report, and I know that a lot of things go behind the scenes, that a lot of extra hard work that we're not aware of, so thanks for taking that on. My question is, I know that when we were talking about this, this idea of the wastewater treatment plant, that we were told that there's going to be different decision points and potential off-ramps of, whether we move forward with this project or not. Now that we're engaging somebody to work with us for the next 13 months, is that going to impact our ability to kind of be able to look at these off-ramps and say, hey, this is going to cost a lot more than we, we're expecting, or if there's other things that come that we are made aware of as we continue on this path? Would this a special services contract get in the way of us? It seems like we're going to be continuing to spend even more money up front before we get to a decision.
No, it would not. So how we designed it, it's they're on call, or it's not to exceed, so we only pay them for the hours that they do work for us, and their schedule is lockstep with the schedule of the EPCOR, so they are reviewing the deliverables. And then we're coming to council at the 15%, 30%, and 60%, and then for the final decision in July of 2022, where you have the off-ramp ability and where you have to approve the final for us to move into a preliminary construction. So you have a lot of control of this process still. And once again, we're only going to pay Carollo for the work that they actually do. It's if we end early, then I hope we don't. But there's no penalty for that.
Right. What concerns me though is that that we the reason why we had said that we wanted to see the 30%, 60%, these different milestones, so that we can see how much how much information we know at that point. But I'm just a little bit concerned that we're already committing ourselves to spend even more money at each one of those milestones, rather than, and I fully understand that having their expertise on this is going to be beneficial for us on the front end. But again, if we decide not to proceed with the project, that's roughly $72,000 a month that we're spending on this work. So that's just my general comment there. So when you come back to us, I would maybe like to see how, again, that's going to be another thing I'm looking at, particularly is at these off ramps, we call them, on that, how much money we spent so far, and if that gets us to a faster decision at an earlier off ramp, then I think is worth it.
Sure. So one thing, just I guess, important part of this is we are sharing costs with Portland, so the cost of the consultant is being split with Portland as well, and we need the services basically in order to make sure that the quality of the product that we're doing is to our city's needs in case we do move forward. So I understand what you're saying, but this is a service we would need regardless, because we do not have the on staff capabilities. I mean, they have 14 experts that they're bringing to the table that we just don't have those 14 experts that can weigh in when we need to make sure that what we're designing is what we need to be, because what we don't want is to get to the end where we're going to make a decision and we don't have the product that we need it to be, because it's kind of one of those things you just can't go back. It's designed at that point,
Right. So I'm just sorry about that. So at this point, we're going to be making a decision to approve the special service contract. But you said that the City of Portland, have they already agreed to it? Will they agree to? If we agree, will they agree to it?
Yeah. So we have an interim government agreement with them, and so. If the project gets canceled, they pay for half of the cost. If the project moves forward, then they pay based upon the amount of flow that we have. We're estimating that we're about 65%, they're about 35%. So, yes, they have agreed. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And following along that, the EPCOR is paying the bills as we go, correct?
Yes. So they're currently. They're paying for the preliminary services from our staff, but we are going to be paying for the consultant out of our funds.
Okay.
So since they're on our team, but once again, if the project moves forward, then their cost will be rolled into the overall project costs.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Winland.
Well, I can just say that I think one of the reasons why this is going smoothly is because Mr. Hooper and his team put a excellent preliminary effort to get us where we are. So hats off to you. I think it's kind of funny because I didn't actually recognize Dan in a suit. I thought he was actually an attorney. But then when I heard his voice again, I saw him on a lot of Zoom calls in a little in a little box with like a hat on, and we were more casually dressed in those days. So hopefully we'll get back to those days soon. I think one of the things that Mr. Hooper pointed out was the Aqua Navida method was the treatment that actually came out, penciled out the best. And so for us to have that, instead of going to the other option, which probably would have cost us more, that's a huge step, positive step for both Lake Oswego and Portland for containing rates. So I think that's going to be a huge part. And my question, I guess, is I think we're taking the lead on this, but is Portland up to speed, and they're kind of along with us, and they agree kind of with everything that's going on?
Yes, and I'll ask Dan for his thoughts on this too, but yes, I feel that Portland's been very active in all of our meetings, and Mike Jordan, who is the director of BES, Bureau of Environmental Services, has been very, very supportive and been involved way more than I thought he would be, given how busy he is. And I've been very appreciative and impressed with their involvement. And I feel that they've been in harmony with us.
Yeah, so Michael Jordan's involvement has been fantastic, but at the same time, having their technical experts and Jim Brown and their collection systems and Amanda Haney from a permitting and an understanding of the regulatory requirements. Deliverables come in, Anthony sends them out, and our entire team looks at them and applies their expertise. So BES is definitely in the loop on everything that's going on and providing comments and input and engaged in the process.
Well, I know Michael Jordan made a comment that he said if we can do it in Lake Oswego in this concept, he would like to do it in more places in Portland. So I think we're just like a little bip, just so small compared to their whole system, but they're looking at replacing a number of systems too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Rapp.
Thank you, Mayor. Not really a question, just a comment, just overall on this whole project. I think, and if you bear with me, I'm gonna kind of start with a metaphor first and then go into what my comment is. So bear with me, council. Every year for Mother's Day, my wife expects from me a strawberry rhubarb pie. That's what she wants every year. And so essentially we have my wife and I have a social contract that every Mother's Day I will give her this dessert for the celebration, right? So I feel where I'm going with this is, Anthony, you built up an incredible reputation and equity with this project and everything else you've done, that we have a social contract with you and the city and the community to build this water treatment plant. And it's very important for not just the city, but everyone here. So we need to deliver on that social contract, like I do my wife in the strawberry rhubarb pie, to ensure that we have the best water treatment plant for our city. And because of the incredible work you have done to lead this project forward for so long, and I'm sure it's not been easy, and I've only been visible to it for 6 months. So we have a responsibility to continue to push this forward, regardless of, of course with the off ramps, but it's very important for the city that we continue to push this forward. So thank you for everything you've done. You've done an incredible job. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Is this a homemade pie situation or a Costco type?
I can't bake, and it's incredibly hard to find strawberry rhubarb pie in the fall or in December. So it's a real issue.
Okay. So the reason, of course, we're having a hearing on this procurement, special procurement, normally for something like this, of course, we go out to bid, and the reasons for doing the special procurement are outlined in the staff report. So with no further questions, we will open the public hearing. And I will ask if there is anyone that would like to testify. Ms. Leonard, no one? Okay. So with that, then we'll close the public hearing.
I'd move to adopt Resolution 21-20.
I second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, Ms. Leonard, please call the roll.
Okay. Mayor Buck?
Yes?
Councilors Mbu? Mans?
Yes.
Wynn?
Yes.
Wendland?
Yes.
Burdick?
Yes.
And Rob?
Yes, with enthusiasm.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Anthony.
And good luck. No.
Okay, next on the agenda is a study session on our community survey questions. Ms. Thiessen, welcome to the meeting.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. This was my first time doing the presentation in person like this, so didn't want to mess up the PowerPoint. So for today, I'm providing an update on our next steps for the community survey and asking for some council direction at the end of the presentation as well. So for background, the city last conducted our community survey back in 2015. We are relaunching it to be having it biannually. That will be every other year, starting this fall for 2001. The next one will be in 2023. Previously, when we used to do the community surveys, and this predates me, actually. So my understanding is they focused on policy asks to the community. So whether it be getting a gauge on the community about their interest in fiber to the home, annexation, some of these larger policy discussions before council then weighed in and then would go to council goal setting. For the relaunching of the community survey, we will have a component of that, but we are actually going to take it one step further and really ask the community how we're doing as a city. So how do they feel about our city services, general feelings toward the city, and then identify areas for improvement. So the primary goals of the community survey are to measure the general attitudes towards city services and programs, determine priorities and areas of concern, and that sounds really ominous, but really it's how are we doing? And then receive feedback on key policy issues. So that will be part of our discussion for council. And then also one key component that was not in the past was we'd like to be able to measure our city's progress against other cities' benchmarks. So a lot of these community surveys actually gain data from a lot of cities throughout the nation. So it'd be great to know how is our police department, or feelings of safe in our community, or how are our parks doing compared to other cities. And that's just a tidbit of information. It's not that it would make all of our decisions, but how we're ranking up comparatively throughout the country, actually. So what the goal would be is when we're doing this biennium survey, this first year will be the baseline. And so we'll have our data points, and then we'll be asking those same types of questions every other year. But then the policy questions can change. And that will then be based off of what council goals are, what we're looking ahead for, things like that. So ultimately, the idea for having a community survey and reinstituting it very regularly and routinely is that it will give us a better understanding of how the community's feeling. It will help guide the city council during the goal setting process. And then it would also give us better insights for policy options that we're considering in the future as well. So like I shared, the community survey will be happening this fall. Right now we are requesting for proposals. That process will close on July 26th. We've got a great interest, actually. I've had a lot of emails, so I think we're going to have a great application pool for proposals. The big thing about this relaunch is we do have a tight turnaround for the fall for then January, but that is at least putting us on track for future years that it will happen every fall, and then we'll have the results in council presentation before you go into goal setting so that you'll have that information. And then it will also, the goal is also that we are using those results for our department plans as well. So there will be kind of a rollout then in the off years as well. So any questions before I move on about the survey or the RFP? Yes.
Sorry, RFP is for
Oh,
for someone to do the survey?
yes.
Or people to submit questions?
it's the request for proposal for the consultant who will conduct the survey, analyze the survey, provide a report, and then a presentation. So comprehensive. Perfect. We will still be, staff will be a major part of the rollout of it. So working on the communications outreach, targeting certain, how we have listservs and things like that. So staff will be working alongside the consultant, but it will be scientifically backed. It will be from an outside consultant as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions about the RFP? Okay, so then the meat of our discussion for today. So like I shared, one thing we'd like to keep that was great in the past surveys is getting policy direction from the community. And what I'm here to ask is for council direction, actually. So for the council direction for identifying 3 to 5 policy topics in ranking order, as I shared, we don't have the RFPs yet back. So depending on who we select, they might price out 2 questions, they might price out 3 or 5. So I'd like to be able to have a list that we can work off of that the council has decided as the top priorities that they'd like the community to weigh in on. Another thing to note, why I was hoping for 5 is depending on the topic, it might actually be that it's not great for a community survey, but it guides staff, almost like the fireworks. So we can do a more targeted outreach process, similar to the parks outreach stuff that we're doing right now. So there might be things like that. I know DI has come up, maybe we do that in this survey, but maybe it would fit better for more targeted outreach. So that's why I'm asking for 5. So I did include in the council report some of the goals that were adopted in 2021 that might lend themselves to having an additional policy question on the survey. But also my prompt to this discussion is really, what would we like to focus on, the council goals from 2022, but then looking ahead, are there goals that you have in mind for 2021 that you'd like to get feedback on before committing to them to being a goal? Or gauging a future city service need, so things that you're hearing from the community, but you don't know if that's really something that we should pursue. And then lastly, a regional policy question. And that could be an option, but just things that could prompt the conversation of how do we find those 3 to 5 policy issues. So, this is kind of my question to you. So, do you want to just turn it over to discussion, Mary?
Well, sure.
Okay.
Remind us again too what we do in advance of goal setting is we have we do some outreach, not a survey, but input seeking, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we do. It's a form, and I'm going to look to Assistant City Manager Phelan.
Yes, Mayor, you're correct. There's
Acting City Manager Phelan, excuse me.
several outreach initiatives we do in advance of the council goal setting. We get input from the boards and commissions, as you recall, and they submit what they think are priorities. Is also we have a roundtable or open house, community open house, which we've done the last few years as well. And
Okay. I just know in the past too, the good thing about the community survey is it has a chunk of questions that we use year to year to try to benchmark and see how things are tracking, as opposed, because we do have opportunities to ask other questions throughout the year and more informal surveys. But it doesn't mean we can't have a question or two that is a question we may not ask again in the future. I know one
Mayor,
thing.
I'm
Yes,
sorry if I may interrupt just briefly. I want to just confirm from Ms. Thiesing that I think what we're looking for are the policy topics and not necessarily for council to actually draft the questions themselves.
That's good.
Nor could I draft them. I don't have a blank document that we're typing out right now. No.
One topic that we have, coming up to study in the fall is around, funding of pathway infrastructure, throughout the town, and that's something I think would be great to include on the survey. Long-standing topic, huge list.
Yeah, and I'd like to find out, sorry, we had.
No, well, yeah, it's kind of, but yeah, so what does everyone think about that, asking that question, with the goal of finding out kind of what's folks' appetite to, fund those improvements? I think so. $5 a month.
I was trying to be official, that's
No,
why.
go ahead.
But, Something I've heard a lot from citizens, and something, of course, I have concern with, is fire bans and which direction we want to go with that. Of course, with our staff, fire department, fire chief involved in that, if that's something that should be added. I don't know that it is, I'm just throwing it out there, because somebody took my pathways and trails.
And I might be out of turn, but if I could just
Go
kind of
ahead.
add to that, I think also emergency preparedness, whether it be for smoke, ice, heat, but what can we do to help ensure that we are serving, you know, whether it's getting people fans or having cooling stations, or even in some cases, maybe generators for people who need to keep the medication cold during power outages, or just, and also from a fire perspective, do we need to do any prevention within our forested areas, or, you know, and again, I look to the fire department to help us with that. But again, emergency preparedness, I think we've seen a lot this year, and I think we need to be proactive so we're ready for the next one.
Forgive me for cutting you off, Council.
No. You first. Go ahead, Councilman. Back on. Oh, okay, you're done.
To Mayor Buck's comment on the pathways, I think I would love to have not just the support of pathways, or figure out more, everyone's going to say, of course, add pathways. I mean, I think that's a pretty, we know that already.
Right.
We figured that out. I think the real question is whether there's any appetite for like a defined resource that would be a slight increase in your property taxes, or whatever, however we do it, but some sort of a fee that would be sustainable for the long term, with, you know, that would focus just on pathways, which if it's a big enough desire, people may, I found in Lake Oswego, if they have a specific thing that they're voting for that they want to support, the support will be there and the money flows. What they don't like is just a blank check without their input, because we have a very input-oriented community, and we love that about Lake Oswego, and I think that makes us a much better place. Then the other thing is, and I'm not sure how to do this, but in the business reconstruction sort of, we have a number of vacancies of businesses here. I don't know how we find out from a survey what people are looking for. And the reason why I'm asking that is because we have some zoning in some of our businesses that are only for certain types of businesses. And the question is, do we need to look at that long-term to say, hey, if people want more of X and we're restricting more of X, is that something that we need to address? You know, over the last couple of years, we've had a few realignments of our allowances for what kind of businesses can go in, like Lakeview Village. Do we need to look at that more, or do we need to kind of help provide success for businesses to thrive in Lake Oswego, and what kind of those businesses should we have? So I guess how you get that out of people, and whether they'll know that or not. But I certainly know that it's really hard to get a reservation in a restaurant if you call on Wednesday for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night in Lake Oswego, which I think is a great sign. So, you know. Yes. I don't know whether there's not enough people to work and you have capacity issues, but I mean, I'm finding that's very encouraging. So what do we need in Lake Oswego?
So is that kind of like economic development to a degree?
Yeah, but frame it from the common resident point of view.
Okay.
Not a technical standpoint of view of, you know, planning codes and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's really trying to get a desire, or to get what our citizens desire we have more of in Lake Oswego from a business and services standpoint, that type of thing.
So the recruitment side of it, almost like, who are we attracting and how do we keep them here?
No, I'm looking more for what do our citizens really want to have here. So I mean, yeah, we would then go out and recruit. We would then go out and maybe have to make some zoning changes, you know, that type of thing. But I just want to try to set us up to find out what people really are feeling that we lack in Lake Oswego, so that gives us some direction for business development.
Perfect.
Okay, Councilor Brown.
Councilor Wendland, great hit on the helping out businesses and economic development. I think, especially obviously the last 16 months, we need to figure out also from our businesses what they need from us, right? So how do we support them surviving, whatever that may be. I think 2 additions I would have is something around building relationships with the school district. So immediately off the top of my head is, we talked about pathways, something about safe routes to school. So what are the parents of school-aged children, what do they need from the city that maybe the school district can't take care of, right? So where are those specific pathways related to schools that we could really help out and make things better? And then what's, similar to Councilor Wendland's point, what's this community's tolerance or appetite for increased spending around roads, like paving roads and repaving roads, things like that. So those would be my 2 big ones.
What about the roads?
Improve appetite for increased spending on pavement projects, road projects, improving the PCI.
Okay.
We should just ask First Edition people to see if they like their paving. They'll be very happy. They'll give a positive feedback.
D Avenue is gorgeous.
Councilor Wynn.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm thinking about, some, I guess, I don't know how we structure it, but thinking coming out of the pandemic, I think that it's revealed certainly some efficiencies with how we operate as a city, right? And so I think that, we're kind of gauging up how we do our services, right? From whether that's when we hold these pre-application meetings, maybe pre-application meeting, instead of having people come in from out of town for this in-person pre-application, maybe continue those pre-applications as Zoom, and then maybe to be able to kind of use some technology to be able to kind of make it more easier for for our citizens, for homeowners, for people that want to come and build things here, make it a little bit easier so they don't save a trip. For example, speaking from personal experience, somebody that comes from Stevenson to come into town to actually do a pre-application versus doing that through Zoom. But also thinking about too, what are some things that we are learning that are barriers to business, for example, small business. And I know that while there's things we can do with zoning, but some of the barriers are also parking requirements, for example, parking ratios and things. And so as we're learning more and more how some of these more restaurants in particular, for example, I'm learning, because that's the business I'm in, consumer behavior is changing dramatically, and finding that more people are using third-party apps. And so maybe there's a way we can look at our parking ratios to be able to allow different types of businesses to go into different complexes. And so as in addition to helping the businesses too, I think we also need to kind of look inward to see some potential maybe inadvertent or unintentional obstacles that are there that that hinder our ability to provide services to our citizens and also to our small businesses here. In addition to that, in this survey too, I haven't seen, it's been a while since I looked at it, but now that we're going forward, I think that it would be really helpful if we had some sort of report card or something where there's something that's, we're doing this every 2 years, but things that are going to stay consistent on these surveys, right? Something that's measurable. In business we call them KPIs, right? Key performance indicators, right? And so how are we doing in terms of police response time? How are we doing with regards to permit wait times, things like that, things that we can actually measure. We have the data for it from the city side, but then sometimes data is different from what perception is. Exactly. Reality is different from perception. So those are things I think that would be helpful to have that may remain static from these surveys we do every 2 years. Our policy questions may change, but if we have something that we can have a report card. Maybe it's there already, I don't know. But
Right, yeah, that's a good point. that's the thing with the survey is it's, I mean, the good points and the business side, I mean, we're not really going to reach a lot of folks that probably, own a local business on this survey, maybe none. But we have other ways to get that, information, like through the chamber, through our, business partners and whatnot. And I mean, the experiences, how many folks of this random sampling, have pulled a permit, with the city. It's, so there might be, because I think that's really good. And maybe we have to figure out what the best vehicle is to get some of this information. Because this is such a tricky survey to a random group.
And I can even give some thought to that because a lot of those references you're using is actually in our budget. Every department has the key performance indicators, so maybe we just need to bring it out of the budget a little bit more so people can see it.
Right.
But it does have the paving index and it calls for service and permits and things like that. So, maybe that's part of the discussion is what can be in a survey, but what data are we already gathering that we just need to bring to light a little bit more forward to the community.
Right. Councilor Mance?
This may be a little bit of strawberry rhubarb pie in the sky here, but one thing that has come to my attention, I think all of us, is the idea of water and the fact that many people are letting their lawns brown out this summer. We still have friends groups planting plants in our natural area. This may be more of a goal item and less of a survey item, but I would love to find out what exactly we could be doing with gray water, recycled water, other types of water that we could be using even on our city medians, for example. Again, I don't know if that would be something for a survey, but it's been weighing on my mind with very, very, very brown lawn this year.
One other topic that I wanted to bring up and see what you all think about would be asking questions. We have our goals this year around DEI and this community process we've been engaged in with now the advisory board and all of that. What the community's perception is of the work is something that we can track for years to come. Perception of because I do believe we ask demographic questions, right, on the survey.
I would like to.
I think so. Yeah. Okay.
It might be an optional part of it in case people don't want to disclose, but I would like to have demographic data.
Right. Not required, but if people volunteer, of course, or they can choose not to answer. But what do you all think about that? Questions how people feel like is the community welcoming?
Yeah.
I mean, we spent a lot of time and effort. We might as well see if those efforts, how it registered.
And over time, are they getting better? Is it worse?
Right.
Okay.
Is our ability to have access and folks' ability to have access paying off? I mean, are they able now to feel more comfortable going to places? Are there more activities? Absolutely.
Okay, Councilor Burdick.
I think also we talk a lot about sustainability and our climate action plan and maybe ask the community what pieces of the plan do they want to see us implement and, kind of hear from them because some things are pretty easy to implement, but others are much bigger. So I think that might be something to ask the community and say, what, and water is actually could be one of those. It's like it might be more focused on our water. We made progress in some of the electrical on equipment and so forth, but there's electric vehicles. There's just so much around sustainability that we should probably be considering, but maybe getting guidance, and I think that might help us know where we should focus our attention.
Councilor Windland?
I know this may not be in this, did you say me? No.
Yes.
I don't know. It's interesting as you're bringing up other ways to figure out how to get information. And I don't know, I get, when I go to the bank, I get an email 3 hours later to say, how was your teller experience? But then I go to, Nordstrom or I go to different places and you get an email, how was your customer experience? And I don't know if there's ways to incorporate more of a customer, that we set it up as an automated, you know, every time somebody pulls a permit or comes visiting our engineering department or, you know, different departments that we have, because what really triggered it is I know most of you went on a police ride-along. And I had that experience, and it was absolutely wonderful. I will say that I get more and more enthusiastic about the work we did on the policing part and how much farther ahead we are than almost everyone else in the world, it seems like, with that happening. But it seemed to me that we were really in a customer service mode, and how do we rate that, and how do we respond to that, you know, getting input. And so I kind of like the idea of, I'm not sure how you find it out, but maybe it's one more mechanism of putting that into when, I'm not saying you ask the person when we arrest them for drunk driving how their feeling was and all that stuff. I'm not saying getting into personal things like that, but the customer service oriented functions that we have, or things like Parks and Rec. I think to Councilor Rapp's question about the school district, do we have enough activities going through our Parks and Rec department that's serving our community well? I mean, what are things that they want to have? Maybe there's an underlying request for people learning how to play pickleball. I don't know, but this is the chance to kind of figure out maybe how we determine what our customers, our citizens are interested in. So anyway, that's food for thought.
Okay. Yeah, good points. Councilor Nguyen?
I did want to ask Councilor Willand, were you sitting in the back seat or the front seat? Because that could really impact how your perception of this department is. No, but kidding aside, I think, and speaking about the customer service, I think also if we were able to, I think we have a lot of our customers are children, right? Those students and children that are taking these lessons and classes, we should ask them what they feel about. So if there's a way we can look for some of the input from the people that are actually registered with these classes, get a youth perspective as well. Because I think as parents, we think this is the best tennis program we have for our kids, and then we find out the kids, they don't like it. So, yeah. Speaking from experience.
You get a report card every day, right? Councilor Mboop. Oh, wow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really didn't want to intervene, but I just wanted to say, like, where do we want to go with these surveys if we are doing it every year? If we based, because it should be a kind of an evaluation of the past surveys. What was the impact of those surveys? What are the responses? Because when we survey, questions are very important. They should be very, directed, very concrete. And like Councilor Nguyen was saying, it has to have solid data that allow the city to move forward. Like, I think Rachel said it, Councilor Verdict said it very clear, like about climate change. We are having problems. Lake Oswego's future as a city that has trees, when we know that fires are something that's threatening Oregon, like I'm not there, but I heard about the bootleg fire. And so those are examples. Honestly, a ride along is not, something that we could send as a city survey. And I understand what Councillor Wendland wanted to say about our policing, but we should ask our cities, so our citizens, how they feel about our police, about our planning department, about us as councillors, and about even the goal setting. are those goal setting relevant to the lives of the people in Lake Oswego? I think that, I don't know, Ms. Stephen, I don't know if what will you use to do those surveys? Like, are you gonna use experts for that, or are you just gonna count on our discussion here as a council to do the survey? And if I have your response, I would just add some thought.
There are the questions that we've asked, and I guess hindsight would have been good to, I guess, have a past survey to look at, but there are the questions that we ask year after year. And what we're talking about here are a few add-on questions in addition to the standard set that we have asked. And those questions are around community trust in government, level of service that the city provides, trust in I don't know if we asked questions about trust in us as a city council or not. We haven't done a survey since 2015.
Yes, and so it might look a little different as well from the one in 2015, but generally what we see is basically by department. So the police department, satisfaction rates, feeling of safety, library, what are services, and it's called out as section by section. Communications, how do people get their news, things like that. Trust might be a component of that, but if it's not, we can also include that as one of these add-ons as well.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. But then what Councillor Wendland said would be something very important. If you could have that, if someone comes to City Hall, to any department, after they leave, if there is that, it's the most direct survey question. How were you served? Like John said, that the banks, the planes, everywhere you go after you leave, they will ask you the question, was the flight a good flight? Or, like things like that. How can we work to have that in our city? This would be more important than all these questions. Every time someone use our service, they can answer a question of their feeling about that encounter with a city agent or with a service that was given to them. I think if we could work on to that parallelly with the survey, if we can have that as a culture, like the banks and all those things, what they do, yes.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you for those comments. So we are hearing some comments around, in addition to this survey, some kind of customer satisfaction type thing. So we'll talk about that.
Some of that, I believe, also already exists, at least in the Parks Department. So again, it might be like the report card. Maybe we just need to bring light to that and have maybe a quarterly report or something, or have it more readily available for the services that aren't already capturing that as well.
Okay.
So
we'll find
I
out.
can add that on as
We'll find out.
off to the side
Yeah,
consideration.
we'll find out.
But I think it's the incorporation of all that within our information work. And we're here to serve the people.
Right.
So we need to find out how we can, and if we haven't done a survey for ever and ever, thank you, sorry.
6 years. Well, yeah.
Right. I think the constant feedback is I think what we need to work on, so.
Right. Agreed. Okay. A good direction? Some good ideas. Okay.
Well, if I may, Mayor, I did hear about 10 different things.
Well,
and a lot of support for all 10. So
we have to actually whittle it down.
are you comfortable with staff then using our judgment to figure out which 3 to 5 of those 10
Well, for
connect
sure.
most with the,
For sure.
we
And
probably
I-
give preference to the
5 to
goals.
7, you said? No, just kidding.
And there are some that we could get answers to through other channels as well. There's some really good,
Yes.
so we can,
Maybe later.
some maybe later.
And you can play the video back over and over and over again, look for keywords.
Oh, yes, we've written them down. And it will be staff whittling it down, but also once we bring on the consultant, their expertise of crafting questions that are gonna resonate. Not only do they make sense, but then also get the data that we need to make decisions too. So
Right.
we might whittle it down a little more, and then Megan's correct. Some of these we might already be doing in other departments that I just need to find out myself, so.
Right.
So 10, but won't be 10.
Yeah, okay, okay.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Stacy, and thank you, everyone. We are going to take a 5-minute break before we pick up the next item. Okay, welcome back. Next item on the agenda is an update on the North Shore Bridge. Ms. Rooney, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. Good afternoon. I'm Erica Rooney, the Public Works Director, and I'm here this afternoon to brief you on the latest information regarding the North Shore Road and Bridge closure, and also to provide this information to the public who may be watching this afternoon. So, Ms. Linder, if you would mind. Thank you. All right. So pictures definitely help tell the story. So I just want to back up a little bit and get us all situated here. So again, the North Shore Road and Bridge was closed a week ago, approximately a week ago. For reference, this tells everyone exactly the bridge that we're talking about. It is the bridge that is what I'd call the outlet to Lakewood Bay as it connects to the rest of the lake. So tiny little piece right there between those two jetties and where the red arrow is pointing. So how this all started was we received an email of concern from the Lake Corps. One of their staff members is on the lake doing their usual work and noticed something looked different to him regarding this particular part of the North Shore Bridge. The actual bridge structure is to the left and almost outside of this picture, but this wall that the picture shows is the approach roadway to the bridge. It's really not the bridge itself. Those are different structures, although integrated. It's the wall part that was of concern to them, and so they passed it along to us. We immediately went out there and did our own field reconnaissance, but we also had two different engineers come out and take a look at the situation in the field with us. The first one was a bridge and structural engineer, the company we've had on call for several years working with us to be available for situations just like this, where it's like, hey, we have a question about this bridge. What do we need to do with this? Can you help us? And so there are advisors, our on-call advisors. The structural engineer, the bridge engineer, found no issues of concern regarding the bridge structure itself, but did recommend that a geotechnical engineer, take a look at this situation with the wall, because although the bridge looked fine, there may be something going on here with the wall. And so we did have the geotechnical, here we go. We did have because this is the area of concern right in here. And we're looking south on the approach to the bridge. The bridge is right here. It's a very short little thing. You blink and you don't know you've gone over it. But this area was of concern. Bridge engineer says the bridge looks fine. There's no cracking. There's nothing new or unusual to have concern. But maybe this ought to be looked at in more detail. So we had a geotechnical engineer come out and take a look at it. And that engineer was concerned. What you can see, and it's a little bit harder to tell in this picture, but it was noticeable in the field, is the roadway and the bridge are starting to pull away from each other. And what's actually happening is the wall and the roadway are pulling away from each other. The wall is starting to kind of bow outward, and so it's pulling away from the roadway surface. So this crack area right here, this separation, is a little bit more detailed of what you can't see right behind this alignment here. So further, on top of those two analyses, we also had our own surveyor conduct a 3D survey and scan of the area and had him compare it to a similar scan that he did about 2 years ago. At that point, it appeared that part of the wall had pulled away about an inch in that time frame. And specifically, it's this first portion right in here, seems to have moved about 1 inch in 2 years. The further away you get from the bridge structure, the less movement there was, and it was hardly detectable at all. That was sort of the icing on the cake for me, to be honest, in that when people say, well, how much can it move before it's a problem? And there is really no answer to that, because, I don't think anyone can honestly say that a wall moving an inch is okay, but 2 inches is not okay. I don't think any of us want to have our house wall move of an inch. That would be of concern. So given the information that we had, it solidified our position that the best course of action would be to close the road entirely out of an abundance of caution and work on the remedy for the investigation and the repair. One thing of note is that some speculative conversation has gone on, and I think it's worth noting, is that, what was it? The weekend before 4th of July, right? When was the heat dome? The heat dome produced temperatures that this region has never seen before. And you may have seen things in the media about roads buckling, even in the Seattle area, different structures. We had some in the Kenton area here in the Portland metropolitan area where they had bridges kind of bulge and then recede, or roadway pieces. And it's possible, because this bridge and this structure have never seen temperatures of that magnitude, it's possible something happened. Can't know that for sure, but it's possible that with that expansion and then the contraction afterwards, it may have moved this wall a little bit, because it certainly didn't catch our eye before this. So just something to think about. I think we're all still finding out the results of what that heat wave has done for us. So with that, we started to work on a communications plan. First of all, we immediately informed the acting city manager, Megan Phelan, of our intentions. I still don't think our city manager is aware of this yet. She'll come back to a nice surprise tomorrow. But we worked with Megan Phelan on this, and then we, of course, followed up directly with the entire council to let you know what was going on and what our intentions were. From there, we did an extensive outreach effort, and this shows just a bit of the communication effort we had. Our webpage we put together. We've done social media on outreaches to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Nextdoor, all of those that our PI folks are quite proficient at. We did a press release, and the press release resulted in a little conversation with Coin TV. I don't think we had any television coverage, which is just fine. I like to keep it that way if we can. But I think it was because we were able to answer their questions. And most of all, what's been really helpful is the FAQs that are available on our website. So when you come to the city's website page, one of the first news articles is going to be the Northshore Road Bridge piece right here. This is just a snippet of it. When you click on that, it takes you to a full page of frequently asked questions about the bridge, what happened, what are we doing, what are we thinking, what was the cause, all of those kind of things we try to answer to the best of our abilities at this time. And so that's been a useful tool to send people to, and I think that's really been helpful. Well, all that information that's on there today is things that I've already probably shared with you, either in the initial or the second emails that I sent out after the closure. Of course, we obviously did emergency services, special interest groups, the Postal Service, our waste management, not waste management, pardon me, Republic Services, and even the school district has been informed. But of course, Lake Corps is a partner in all of this, and we've been in contact with them multiple times, also trying to clarify that it's safe to take the boats underneath the bridge, because it's not the bridge itself that we're concerned about at this time, it's the approach to it. I'm not gonna say that might not change as we find out what's going on, but for right now, that looks sufficient and safe enough to go under. So our FAQs on our web page will definitely change as we progress through this investigation. This was our general closure layout. It's kind of a high level. We had multiple road closed ahead signs, local traffic only. We've added more since this even initial plan. And then at the bridge itself, right here, the bridge area itself, we put in barricades and road closed, we really mean it kind of signs. But we started out with this sort of a road closure. This is what it looked like the first day that we got there and put up the closures. But those are barricades that just about anybody, small, medium, or large, can move, and they did. So it was a little bit of a challenge, but again, I don't think we had any serious safety issues with people doing that, as far as there were no car accidents or anything like that. It's just we really didn't want anybody going through there. So we then moved into putting in more permanent barriers that are filled with water that take, 5 to 6 people to move. So it's not likely that somebody can actually move those just to get their car through.
I heard they did move them. Did somebody move them or not?
The barrier, yeah, I'll show you in just a second. We've
Oh.
actually moved the orange barricades just a little bit further because That's okay. No, that's all right. We're getting there.
Well, no, she said that you couldn't move them.
I couldn't move them.
Oh.
It takes 5 or 6 people to move them. And we did put 5 or 6 people out there this morning to move them, and I'll show you in just a second. But, this was the first thing we needed to do was close it immediately to heavy traffic or any traffic. And we knew that the pedestrians and the bicyclists would want to go through, but we didn't have all the equipment in order to do that effectively. So as of this morning, though, we did have all the equipment we needed to make this work better. So what we have now is we've moved the barriers a little bit, opened this up so that it meets ADA. We have this opening, and what we have now is called a TPAR, a temporary pedestrian access route with proper delineation. And this is where bikes and peds can go through. So they're on the west side of the roadway. The issue of concern is right behind this. You can't see it in this photo, but that's the area of concern. So they're well away from that. Again, their weights are not going to be something that triggers anything. Quite frankly, water or a major downpour could be more likely to trigger something else happening out there at this point, just because water could seep in between the roadway and the wall. And then this is looking north from the north end, and you can see that this is a nice open area for bikes and peds to go through. And again, unless 5 or 6 people get together and really heave on that, you can't move those orange barriers. So another thing to just note, we've been watching and monitoring, our PI folks and some of our staff have been monitoring different apps such as Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Waze. They've obviously received the closure information. I don't know how that works in the world of wizardry out there, but they are getting that information, and that's starting to show up on their systems. So even the other day when I pulled up my Google Maps, it had road closed right there on the Lakewood Bridge, or the Northshore Bridge. Hopefully this will help those folks who are errant drivers thinking that they can cut through here. And we have been listening to folks in our conversations while we've been out there, and also just from conversations on a few phone calls that we've had, that the traffic is settling down. The first few days of any traffic control plan are always chaotic. People have to adjust, to get used to the situation. They didn't see the 3 signs getting there. Hopefully they will now. And I think it started to settle down because as we approach, a week or so later, we're not hearing too many complaints about errant drivers, a lot of turnarounds in driveways and things like that. So it's settled down. We'll be taking vehicle counts in the area while it is closed. I'm going to wait a few more weeks, again, to let it settle. And we want to do that for comparison purposes, in that there's often a lot of concern about the amount of traffic that goes through here on a regular basis. So we're going to take a look at it when it's closed to see what that looks like as well, just so we have that information as we move forward. It is, though, and this is very important, it is only one of 2 routes on the east side of the lake in order to get around. So, long term, this is a critical route for us, because if something happens on State Street, you can't get around this side of the lake. So it's critical long term that we reinstate this at some point. And that's our goal, and that's why this is, quite frankly, a priority for all of our staff to start working on this unplanned event. So our next steps, like I said, this is going to be a priority for us. We're going to adjust some assignments within our staffing, maybe put a few other projects on pause for a few minutes while we can reassess. Will likely take 4 to 6 months, given the engineering and construction climate right now, which is just heavily burdened with a lot of projects. And maybe that's not the right way to say that, but there is a high demand for engineering and construction work right now, and we're all struggling to get suppliers, we're struggling to get contractors, and even engineering services are starting to become kind of scarce because there's so much demand out there. But hopefully we can get someone on board quickly. We're going to use emergency procurement methods if possible, so that we can get someone in there to start the investigative work, find out what's going on, probably have to peel that roadway back, open it up a little bit, see what kind of degradation has happened, and then determine what sort of fix is necessary. I don't know if it's going to be small. I don't know if it's going to, the minute we open it up, becomes larger and larger. Could have a lot of scope creep here, But our goal is to just try and identify the immediate problem, see if we can come up with a short-term solution that is going to make that area safe. Long-term, the bridge is pushing, you know, about almost 100 years old, the original bridge. It's been modified 40, 50 years ago, but the original structures are well into their useful life. In our current CIP, you'll find that the cost estimate for a bridge replacement at this location is around $4 million, I think, 3.7, so around to 4. So it's one of our cheaper, smaller bridges, but nonetheless, $4 million isn't something we have sitting around available. So some choices will probably have to be made as we move forward, and we'll certainly be coming back to council for those discussions as we investigate and find out what's going on and what the alternative solutions could be. But I want you to know that this is a priority for us, and we do, again, our goal is to get this reopened as soon as possible, but we want to do it thoughtfully and with input from council as to proper fiscal decisions on how best to spend the money that we need to make a repair or a replacement. So with that, that's my update as to where we are this week, and hopefully I don't have to come back to you for a couple more weeks, maybe, well, it'll probably be September for emergency contract services, and maybe sooner if we're within our contracting limits with the city manager, we'll do that. But I would anticipate we'd be back to you in September with an update.
Is there a difference between the bridge part that you kind of identify as the sidewalk and then the part where the cars drive over the water? Or is that all the bridge? The whole thing's the bridge? Or just is that just that walkway that?
Just this part is where we want pedestrians.
Well,
and
no, I see that,
bicyclists
but
to go.
so on the east side, the whole thing is the bridge, right? Not just the pedestrian. With the typical pedestrian walkway that's now, of course, blocked off, but that sidewalk, if you will.
Yeah, it was a little chunk of sidewalk that didn't have any sidewalk going anywhere else.
Right.
So there was a little bit of sidewalk on the bridge structure, and then it dumped you into the road.
Yes.
There were no pedestrian
other,
facilities.
but the whole thing is the bridge, right?
Yeah, the bridge is, in this picture, the bridge is basically where you see a little bit of railing here. It's probably, I think it's only 20 feet wide, you know,
Right.
2 boats widths, so 20 feet wide, and here it is over here. So it's not a very wide bridge.
But the $4 million is the cost to replace, or completely replace the bridge.
Probably the bridge and these approaches is what I think I saw in some old.
And the approaches, I see.
Yeah.
But not including a replacement of that whole retaining wall structure.
It could, those estimates could include this. I have to go back and look at what those estimates were based on, but it had some approach money for there. So I think 4 million could be.
Worst case, maybe.
The approaches plus the structure. But we will find out more. Yeah.
Councilor Wendland has a question.
Two questions. Have we determined that it wasn't hit by a car backing up or trying to make a U-turn, that it was a settlement issue versus contact? I mean, is that?
I don't know that there's a way for us to tell that. Let me see, let me back up one bit here. So what's clear is that this area is, if you will, sinking a bit.
Right.
This is a low spot, so when it rains, all of the water is going to puddle right here and go into this crack area. I don't think, it didn't have any marks of an accident.
Okay.
We haven't heard of any accidents.
Or just a truck that hasn't admitted or anything?
No, I would
Okay.
say if that had happened, these rocks up above would have shown something more like a hit. And it doesn't have any accident-related damage. We also see, and you can't see it in this photo, but we have some photos that show pavement cracking out here on an old trench that's related to this gas line. And it shows that it's cracking again. We did a slurry seal out there in summer of 2020. And slurry seal is sort of like putting on a nice little mask over the bridge, and it looks great until it starts to crack again. And so here we are 1 summer later, and that crack has shown up again. So
The other question is there any state or federal money available for bridges or any COVID money that has shovel-ready projects?
Yeah.
Do we know?
that is one of the things I'm hoping to look at with our finance director to see if any of the ARPA money, American Rescue Plan money, might be available for this. We're still having a lot of difficulty getting clarity on what we can use those projects for, what are the requirements, things like that, but we're certainly going to look at that, and that would be helpful if it was available for us. We have conversations going on with ODOT about this, in that it's a little odd because it's not the structure itself. Oftentimes when structures fail more significantly, there's funding can be made available for emergency repairs, but we're sort of on the cusp of not quite being there yet. But it's something we're looking into with ODOT.
So we need somebody else to help take out part of the bridge, is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't recommend that, but yeah.
Okay.
But we're looking. We have
If anyone's
we have a
listening.
lot of work to do to see what our options are.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
And Councilor Nguyen?
So I guess we got to thank the Lake Corp for pointing this out to us. My broader question is, this is one bridge of many bridges we have in town. And to Councilor Verdict's point earlier today about, emergency preparedness. And I think this, as you pointed out, this is a critical connection point. I know that you mentioned that a couple of years ago that we had engineers look at this, but are we on a regular inspection program with all of our bridges and all of our connections like this? Is that something that we would, if Lake Corp didn't point this out to us, would we have found out maybe a few months later with a normal inspection schedule?
So there is every 2 years, the bridges are inspected by ODOT certified bridge inspectors. That's part of the service that ODOT does provide to us. So it's possible they might have noticed it in the next round if Lake Corps hadn't. So that's an ongoing issue. Those inspections often lead to, we rely on those inspections to lead us to the ability to apply for grants. And right now we have a request for grants in for our two, our least, I don't want to say our worst bridges, but they are, our two worst bridges are in the queue to be considered for funding from ODOT. And again, we're competing with hundreds and hundreds of other bridges throughout the state. So we just keep reapplying, and as our bridge ratings go down, our chances for grants improve. So that's the story. This was not one of our worst bridges, so it wasn't one that we applied for money for recently.
So if this is not one of our worst bridges and we determine that it's not safe enough to cross, we have worse bridges that we're still allowing people to go for. So.
Yeah, they don't have things like this happening. They have other issues of
Other
concern.
issues, okay.
Right.
But that's when you always say worse,
Right.
but not like these big,
Yeah.
separating from the wall.
Right, and so the concern here is more about the roadway pulling away, or the wall falling over and the roadway sloughing down. That's more of the concern. The bridge itself is still in good shape, according to the bridge engineer who did the inspection for us last week.
Is there a weight limit on this bridge?
No, there is not, because it's fine. The bridge itself is fine.
Okay.
But the road, which is a separate entity for us to deal with, not ODOT, or to inspect, is
Not fine.
is not. So we
So like a
didn't.
fire truck going over this repeatedly?
Pardon?
So fire trucks like going over this small expanse of roadway and bridge repeatedly, it's not going to impact?
No, it wasn't under a weight limit crisis. We do have two bridges in the city, one that's owned by us and one that's owned by the county up in the Summit on the Lake neighborhood. There we go. Summit Bridge and the bridge at Summit and Iron Mountain, both of those are weight limited to very specific kinds of trucks that have multiple axles, like the 5-axle dump trucks. They have to find other means for getting their equipment across there. But our fire trucks can go across both of those, and we've given them very specific directions on how to do that, and they're aware of that.
So
This
is
bridge
probably
was
not
not
caused
one
by
of
that.
those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Umbu also has a question. And just unmute, there we go.
Yeah, I was reading in the news, and I even called the mayor about that. I was very worried about that. Thank you, Ms. Rooney, for the update. But I'm just following up. with what Councillor Wynn said, I am very worried about the infrastructure. In general, in America, I think the president himself thought about it and is looking for the money. At the same time, it's very important that we realize that these bridges are old and that we move along and fix them before there is a tragedy that's gonna happen. Because like you say, if this bridge is not the worst of our bridges, it means even if it's not in the structure, it means it's not good. And there's this gentleman, I forget his name, who's been bombarding the council with emails and stuff. So what he's saying, then you can believe that what he's saying is true, that some of our infrastructure need to be changed. $4 million, there's no cost for lives and for the safety in our community. And, budget, when people talk about being, budget or financially responsible, it does not work in cases like that, because, the cost of lives or of safety, there's no cost about that. We need to move along. And like now, how do we get the money? There's an infrastructure, big infrastructure budget that comes from the federal government. So if we started applying for those grants, like Ms. Rooney said, I think we need to continue and also see what the city itself has, what Laura can do to go ahead and fix this and inspect all the infrastructure we have in Lake Oswego right now. I think it's one of the first moves we need to do, inspect everything, because if the heat caused this damage, it might have caused it somewhere else. So we need to, I think, as part of safety, and I believe that there's an inspection, but it's generally most of bridges that falls or infrastructure, they always say, oh, it was inspected not long ago. So I would move, would ask the council to recommend that we go ahead and inspect all the infrastructures we had in Lake Oswego, and, as a matter of safety, and for those that needs repair, that we make it as an emergency repair and fix them. But I would just, I'm feeling much better that I heard what you said and the move to secure the place. Thank you for doing that. And, I hope we're gonna move to, checking the safety of this infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, Ms. Rooney, thank you very much. We appreciate the update.
Thank you. It's all good.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 21-25, exercising the power of eminent domain with respect to the property located at 1107 Yates Avenue. And Mr. Luce is going to present us with the staff report. Mr. Anderholm is here as well. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We've already discussed this on a few occasions, but this is the first legal step in moving towards using eminent domain to acquire the property. So this is a resolution of necessity that says that the city needs the property for public use. So if you agree with the resolution, we're hoping you'll vote in favor of it.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Someone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion. to adopt resolution 2125, exercising the power of eminent domain with respect to property located at 1107 Yates Avenue.
Second.
Multiple seconds. Okay, is there any discussion? All right, Ms. Linder, please call roll.
Mayor Buck,
Yes?
Counselor Zambu,
Yes.
Mans,
Yes.
Nguyen,
Yes.
Wenlin,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
and Rapp.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anderholm. Mr. Lewis. Next item on the agenda is a consent agenda.
Move to adopt the consent agenda?
Thank you.
Second.
Oh, thank you, Councilor Nguyen. So we are.
I'll take it.
Hurry up. This is a approval of the meeting minutes from June 1 and June 15th. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Information from council. I just have a couple, just two things. There's, as some of you may know, the implementation of the supportive housing services measure, which is the kind of region-wide homeless services measure that voters approved. Collects an income tax on businesses and individuals. Has been delayed in Clackamas County, not so much or not at all in the other two neighboring counties. So there's a group of mayors in Clackamas County that are urging the county commission to rethink that. The funding is available to implement the measure now. It's a huge need within the county. So I just wanted to make you all aware that I signed on to a letter that we sent in to the county commission earlier today. We here in LO as a council, I'm going to call a study session in the fall where we can learn more about the supportive housing services measure. That's been another thing. It's been very behind the scenes. No discussion about this measure at the regional meetings where we typically would discuss this. It just has not made it on any agenda. And so a lot of us in the region are just kind of in the dark in terms of what these services are. Some of this money impacts us and the work that our police do here in Lake Oswego, so it'd be great to know, how the local implementation plan at the county level impacts the services we provide here in the city, and then of course it's how we work together. And there's lots of cooperation between agencies throughout the county. So that is kind of a current issue that a lot of us are paying attention to. And then Councilor Mans and I were at the LO Tiger Water Partnership meeting last night, and it's just worthwhile to note that the whole state, as we all know, the state is in drought, and actually severe drought in some parts of the state, in extreme drought. But right here we're in severe drought, and the level of the Clackamas is almost at record lows right now already. So they're monitoring the levels, and there's no need for urgent concern, but it's just good to know that it's almost at the lowest point it's ever been. So it's not great. And there's levels it has to maintain just for the fish run. So the water treatment plant team does a great job monitoring it every day. But we may have to do some kind of curtailment later in the summer, just depending on if it rains or doesn't rain. So right now, the interesting thing is that the water that's flowing into normally we'd have the snowfall flowing into but that's gone already. And a lot of it with the temperatures just evaporated. So instead of going down so all the water going into the river now is coming straight from the aquifers, which is very unusual. So.
Indeed.
I don't know if Councilor Mans has anything else to.
Excuse me. I have something on a slightly more uplifting note. Tomorrow we have our first all-city, if you will, open concert at Foothills. Come on down.
Are you welcoming people there?
Come on down. I believe it's at 7 6, 7? Oh dear, I should know
Are
this.
you announcing the band, though?
Pardon me?
Are you announcing the band?
Yes, I will be announcing the band, the famous dance hall days. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Come on down. 7 o'clock, dance hall days, me announcing. Come on down, bring a picnic, enjoy yourselves. We're so happy to be back to this kind of relative normal.
Jackie's
That's
going to
a
be
complete
a
night.
music promoter in her next
right.
life.
Been there, done that.
Love it.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. Ms. Phelan?
Nothing, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right. All right, so with that, we are now going to go into executive session. Mr. Luce, will you please read the parameters for us?
Will do. The Lake Oswego City Council will meet under authority of ORS 192.6602E to conduct deliberations with persons designated to negotiate real property transactions, and F, consider records that are exempt by law. Public inspection. Public is not invited to join us back in the executive session, but the media is allowed. No decisions will be made at the executive session, and decisions will be made back in the open session.
Okay, and we will return to open session following our executive session, although there are no other items on the agenda, so most likely we would just adjourn. Yeah, okay.